So why in the world would we sell our interest in an office in order to do this EXP thing? And these are questions that people ask us. We've had the good fortune of being in the real estate business together, 18 years, yeah. And we sold real estate in high volume and did that whole game. Started to think to ourselves like, hey, how can we get more leverage in our business? So we went down the traditional path. Oh, we need the leverage of labor, which would be a team in the physical world. Really turned out to be more of a management thing, where out of the 200 transactions we did that calendar year, I think 170 were me, right? And only 30 were other people. So like, well, you had actually been telling me for a while that something
needed to change.
Yeah, something needed to change, because traditional success in real estate is working 70 hours a week, 60, 70 hours a week. I was doing that.
And I kept saying, I don't want to do this anymore. There's got to be a better way.
And I was like, sure.
We got to keep going.
We got to keep going. It finally reached like kind of this breaking point where 200 transactions in a calendar year, 202. We did that 2 years in a row. And it was wild and hectic and crazy. And that was just me, you, a couple assistants, a listing coordinator, transaction coordinator, I think a couple buyer's agents. But again, they were only doing like 30 transactions. And you came to me and you said, hey, I never signed up to do 200 transactions in a calendar year.
Yeah, just because you want to do 200 deals doesn't mean I necessarily want to do 200 deals. And I felt like I was being dragged behind you.
Yeah, just to put context too, you were the operations manager. So you were involved, right? It's not like It was like you weren't involved in the business. You were. So, we did the whole thing where we would take a nice trip, but then I would have to say in my mind, like, hey, I'm going to have to ask her to do something. And when I do, she's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
So I could either ask her now and get out of the way and then enjoy the rest of the day, or have fun, then ask her, then she'll be pissed. You know what I'm saying? You essentially said to me, you were like, hey, like, just so you know, like, if you keep, like, we're making a lot of money and like, I'm pleased with that. At the same time, like, if you, because it was really me, if you keep charging at this level and want to maintain this level, it will have ancillary side effects. Like, it'll affect like relationships, it'll affect like other things. And I think truthfully, my love for you was so strong that like that got my attention because it scared me. A lazy mind's answer is just to work harder, right? And a more sophisticated mind says, hey, what tools do I have at my disposal? What resources do I have at my disposal so I can get more with less? And that had to do with me figuring out leverage and figuring out like media, figuring out really looking at this game of real estate and saying, hey, as we go out into the landscape of different platforms that we can build a business on top of, which platform provides us with the most opportunities and the most leverage?
Right.
And that's where we reevaluated. We were like, hey, we own part of this office. There was really no money there. And we started to pick our head up. I have a good friend, a brother from another mother, Jose, who asked me for about a year. And I was just like, nah, dude, I'm good. Because there's a saying that says once a man makes money, he becomes piss poor listener. And
doing it for so long the same way.
Yeah, and we were really good at it.
Right.
Yeah, and it was working. So, but then I took a call and I started to really examine this platform and what it actually is, right? And I think a lot of agents, they've probably been exposed to it. Somebody's talked to them about it, but they don't really know what it is. So the intention and purpose of this video is to kind of be like an explainer. So independent of whatever you decide to do, it's so that way you're fully equipped with all the information that you need and you can make an educated decision in terms of what makes sense for you, right? So I really view, and we've come to view, brokerages as just platforms.
Right.
YouTube went to their content creators in 2007 and 8, and they said, hey guys, we have a really unique relationship with each other. That relationship is where we're just a platform. Like, we don't create any content. You content creators create all the content. So we need you and you need us. So we need to come up with something that's mutually beneficial in terms of a business arrangement, financial arrangement, so we can keep doing this as a business. And when you really think about it, do brokerages actually sell any real estate? No, they're just platforms to process transactions. Who actually sells all the real estate? The agents. Yeah. So it's just a platform. So whatever you decide to do, whether you stay where you're currently at or you're looking at different options and choices, recognize that brokerages are just platforms to process transactions. So your decision is really about which platform would serve you and your family best that you can build your business on top of. that provides the most opportunities, options, and choices, right? And as we started to like kind of examine those landscapes, as in really like three kind of options at your disposal. One is like a traditional brokerage firm. They have like splits and caps, right? Usually they have splits that don't cap, right? So meaning they have like an 80-20 split, 90-10, but it never stops. So as you do more deals, you pay them more money. Now, that would be not an issue if the value they provided was commensurate to what you're giving.
Right.
And almost uniformly, as an agent who sold real estate for a long time and speaking to agents on a regular basis, I can tell you emphatically that almost always when I speak to agents that are in those environments, the value is not commensurate to what they're paying.
No, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's one option that you have at your disposal. Another option that you have at your disposal is just like a flat fee company, right? Where all they take is like a transaction fee, $400, or whatever. And as a result, though, you get nothing. So you get no training, no guidance, no support. And that has a tendency to attract people that,
Nice.
are, as you would say, or the Cubans would say, tacaño, right? They're cheap. So it has a tendency to attract people that are like, hey, I want to extract as much commission as I can out of my transactions. At the same time, what I've seen experientially is due to the lack of guidance and information and coaching, they end up plateauing and doing very little business.
Right.
Yeah. And they're like, well, I keep all the money. Well, I'll show you, but they end up plateaued, right? And they don't end up growing.
Yeah, they're just thinking small.
Yeah.
Term.
Yeah. And then the other model that's emerged, ones that have capping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And the capping mechanisms are interesting because as an agent, that means you end up keeping more of your commission as time progresses. So at the beginning, that doesn't really make that big of a deal. As time progresses, though, and you start to get more productive, it 100% makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in terms of like how much you're keeping and things of that nature. So the decision for an agent is really about platform selection and which one do they think long-term would serve them best.
Right, which adds the most value.
Which adds the most value, because we are a firm believer whoever adds more value with.
Mm-hmm.
So with these platforms, like EXP as a platform is the disruptor, right? So 15 years ago, Glenn Sanford came along and said, hey guys, there's got to be a better way to do this. He was at a company that had profit sharing. We were at that company for 15 years as well. And he had to like fight and kick to get like a little bit of ownership in an office, which we did too. And then when he realized like, hey, there's not that much money here, right? So he liked the idea, but it really wasn't what they were claiming it was. And he's like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? And when he saw the advent of, high-speed internet, he was like, oh yeah, nobody comes to the office anyway, which they don't. I always find
they do. It's just to do nothing.
Yeah, like I always find it super interesting, and I don't want to I know that there's value in relationship and everything. What I'm also aware of though is like in practice, having physically sold real estate for a long time, I mean, you got to get like cupcakes and donuts and like stuff just to get people to come, and yet we're all paying for it. He was like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. So essentially, he created a new category, right, which is a cloud-based brokerage model, and that cloud-based brokerage model has the following kind of characteristics. One is it has a capping mechanism. So it's an 80-20 split up to a $16,000 cap. So meaning like once you hit that cap of $16,000, which is 80,000 in GCI, then the remainder of that year would be at 100%, right? So for a lot of agents, immediately they would drop money to the bottom line, like immediately, which they can then use to invest back in their business, whether that be in lead gen, staff, or anything. Marketing, et cetera.
Yeah.
The second component is that it has an equity component. And this is fascinating, right? Because I heard a quote one time, which is very true, and I have direct experience with it, is that you will never get rich trading time for money you must own equity. And meaning like I have to have ownership in something, right? We all know, if you're watching this, and we all know people in our personal life that are very hardworking, that work very hard, diligently, 5-6 days a week. They don't have equity in anything. And as a result, as time progresses, their life gets more difficult, right? Mm-hmm. So I always like to ask agents, what do you have to show for the time you spent selling real estate at the end of your calendar year other than commissions and pieces of plastic? And they always look at me like it's a trick question, but it's not, because I know the answer. What is it?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's nothing.
Right.
And for a long time, I think for a very long time, the currency that is deployed for agents instead of equity is emotional. It's like significance. Like we put them on panels, we give them a little piece of plastic. At the same time, I'd rather equity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And in corporate America, the way that corporate America rewards performance is with equity. You know, I found it very interesting. There was a CEO recently who took a position and everyone's freaking out about his pay package because it was like $100 million. What I found fascinating is that nobody seemed to pay attention to the fact that his salary, while very high, was $1 million a year, was a very small portion of his compensation plan.
Right.
What the vast majority of his compensation plan was equity.
Right. It's not only nice to get equity, but it's also like you have skin in the game to actually make the company better.
That's right. And it solves for this principal and agent problem. So like if people go to, you can Google it, this principal and agent problem. Like if we were to go to business school, they would give us a case study about principals and agents. So what that means is that principals, let's say owners, are usually at odds with agents, let's say like employers or employees or people that like work with them or for them. And the reason is because principals, what do they want? They want to get as much profit as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then agents, what do they want? They want to keep as much money as possible. So there's friction. And what it says in the principal and agent problem is whoever solves for the principal and agent problem best, maybe not perfectly, but best, will grow the most, right? And the question becomes is how do you get agents to think like principals? You make them owners.
Right.
Right. So we were at another company for 15 years and they gave us, for grossing $1 million in a calendar year, a magnificent piece of plastic. And that's just crazy, right? And if we'd been doing this for 15 years, when we left that company, we would have left with hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity. Instead, we just got a piece of plastic.
And we had to sell our shares at a loss.
At a loss. That's also a component of the model, is that you have the capacity to earn equity. And the question to be asking yourself is, if you're going to spend the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years selling real estate, wouldn't it make sense for you to be earning equity in the company that you're helping to grow and build? And the answer is emphatically, yes, 100%. Okay. And then the third component of this model is this revenue share thing. And, you know, I always think it's so interesting to me because, you know, people immediately like, well, that's a scam. And, you know, you guys are just interested in like, you're just a recruiting company. And I'm like, well, what's super fascinating about that is that the two things. One is that revenue sharing is a business model that lots of other businesses that are very well known utilize very successfully, right? And the second is that the data doesn't support that claim, right? Because according to Inman and these other publications, like nobody sells actually more real estate than EXP as a brokerage firm in terms of units and volume and all that stuff. So, you know, we sell a lot of real estate. And that is the focus, is selling real estate, right? It's just an opportunity to participate in the revenue, which is a very unique, gracious, generous opportunity, because Glenn didn't have to do that. And in fact, like pretty much the vast majority of models in real estate that aren't cloud-based don't, right? Which is essentially the way I like to describe this to people. If we look at like different businesses that have utilized this strategy. So I brought up YouTube last time, and YouTube said, hey, we have this unique relationship with each other. You are a content creator. We, YouTube, create no content. We need you and you need us. So we need to come up with a mutually beneficial financial arrangement so we can keep doing this together as a business. And what they came up with based on performance is they say to content creators like us, right? If you have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours worth of watch time in a calendar year, which is actually harder than it sounds, we will give you half of the revenue that we generate from ads on your content. So I always like to ask agents, is that a scam? It is not. It is just a economic model called revenue sharing. It caused YouTube to become the second largest search engine in the world at half the speed that it took Google to become the first. When Google realized that they had such enormous competition, do you know what they did? They bought YouTube, which was a steal. Okay. They bought it for $1 billion and now does like 30 billion in revenue, right? A year. Well, what EXP says to their agents is, if you as an agent bring an agent to our platform called EXP, because again, do brokerages sell any real estate?
No.
Nope. So it's just a platform, no different than YouTube. And what they say to us is, hey, if you bring an agent to our platform and that agent sells any real estate as a reward for helping the company to grow, we will share in some of the $16,000 revenue that they send back to us, some of that cap. That's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And it really, truly, with no hyperbole, no hype, without being dramatic, has completely changed our life. We have the good fortune of really serving for and working for all of these agents that trust us and pouring into them to help them to be as productive as they possibly can. And the company allows us to share in the revenue, which is wild, right? So, and what I also want you guys to be clear on is that we went 10 years with no competition, which is pretty awesome. Like Amazon went 7 years with no competition. So now there are, I believe, like 66 models that claim to have capping, equity, and rev share, right? A couple things to be clear on. One is being first to market matters. So Amazon was first to market. They have 65% of all retail traffic online. Uber has 75% of all rideshare traffic. So it's like, is there Lyft? Do they exist? Yes. Who gets the lion's share? Uber. So we are the Uber and the Amazon of cloud-based brokerage. What I would propose or suggest to you is a few things. One, just because somebody copies a model doesn't mean it's going to work. So an analogy I would give is like, for those of you who perhaps are old enough to remember, I'm dating myself, okay? In the 2000s, there were all these .com companies, right? And everybody was following a similar model, which is like, hey, we're going to sell stuff online. Well, like 97% of them failed, right? Out of thousands, like most of them failed. But in there was Amazon, Facebook, Google, right? Just because somebody copies a model doesn't mean it's going to work. Only 10% of businesses actually are successful long term. So that's number one. Number two, I think the decision that you have to make in terms of platform selection is, do you want to go with something that is not profitable and not proven, whose claim to fame is we're going to be the next, right? Or do you want to go with something that's profitable, proven, and already at scale, right? So EXP is an S&P 600 company, meaning that the S&P 500 most successful large cap companies, United States, S&P 600 most successful mid cap companies, United States. You can't politic your way in, BS your way in. You either fit the financial criteria or you don't. We have $100 million in the bank. We're debt free and our stock pays a dividend. When I say that to agents, do you know what they say to me?
What's it matter to me?
Yeah. Why do I care if my broker makes any money or not? I'm like, well, you don't care because you don't own any of it. Does that make sense? So we could have, and I mean this lovingly, without any ego, we could have built on any platform, right? And we made the decision to build on this one because it was proven, because it was profitable, and because it was at scale, right? And I think that's the decision that you have to make. So as an agent, if you're watching this, the decision is, hey, which platform long-term do I think would serve me best, right? That would provide the most opportunities for me and my family, that essentially is a platform that I can build an ecosystem, an empire on as big as I want, right? And then the second is which one of those would I want to go with? Like the one that's proven profitable at scale, the Uber, the Amazon, or one that essentially is a copycat model, right? Who has tinkered with the model and says like, hey, we're better, right? Just because we tinkered with it a little bit. And then I think the other thing that people vastly underestimate, like grossly underestimate, is the power of proximity. Because I think the other decision that this is it's not just platform selection, but it's who you're going to get proximity to in terms of a guide. So, our life has meaningfully changed dramatically. Our initial origin stories are a little bit different, but my family of origin, like we lived paycheck to paycheck. We were on food stamps a few times, like living in other people's houses when they came across hard times, sort of thing. And my life is radically different because of a handful of relationships, maybe 4 or 5 and counting. The thing to ask yourself is, hey, what do I want to accomplish? And who could I get proximity to specifically that can pour into me and teach me the specialized knowledge or show me how to do it? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think it really comes down to, right? Hey, platform selection. 2 is who you're going to get proximity to. And we have the good fortune of being in proximity to some amazing humans that can speak into whether you want to learn media, we can show you how to do that. You want to learn attraction, we can show you how to do that. You want to sell high real estate in high volume, we can show you how to do that as well. You want to learn how to run a scale and run an operation that's gangster, she can show you how to do that. She's got an online course on how to do that. So we've really been super intentional and purposeful about creating an ecosystem that is designed to equip agents to deal with whatever issues that they're having. Yeah, so I know I speak on both of our behalfs that it would be a privilege and a pleasure to partner with you. And if you have any questions, about what we're doing and how we're doing it, you can click on the link below and book a confidential call to connect with either me or Carla. And we'd be more than happy to have conversations with you. But like what I'm very well aware of, again, with no hyperbole, without any drama, this model's changed our life. And I'm super grateful for the opportunity and super grateful that it essentially was the answer to what me and you were both praying about and trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
let's go. Let's grow.
Let's go. Let's grow. If you didn't make the pivot, Rob, to probate, your business would have dropped by 50% last year.
Yeah, that's right. Probate now makes up about 50% of my business, and that would be for this year too, and probably going forward.
For the first 6 years, I was kind of broke. So can you share what your experience was? And I think it's quite common for agents where they're kind of drifting around